There are some women who are just like, I don't plan to retire. There are others who really feel like they're mentors. They have a lot of different age groups in their world, whether it's grandchildren or neighbors or friends of family. Some of them are activists. They are just really engaged in their community and have so much wisdom to offer, so much life experience.
I'm Ann Marie McQueen, journalist and proud 50-ish woman, and we are here looking for the true truth in perimenopause, menopause, midlife, and beyond.
Opening our minds to other possibilities is not always easy.
Hotflash Inc.
You're all woman to me. All right, Ann Marie.
Has your doctor told you that you're too young for perimenopause? You just don't feel like yourself? You are not alone. Perimenopause can start earlier than you think. That's why Menolabs is here, to support you with a range of products and the information you need to confidently speak up and get the care you deserve. They also offer science-backed products like their bestseller, MenoFit, a probiotic designed to help relieve symptoms like hot flashes and night sweats and more, all while supporting your overall health and wellness. Don't settle for less. Visit Menolabs and get the support you need today. Right now, they're offering our Hotflash Inc. listeners 20% off using code HOTFLASH20 at menolabs.com. Now for the small print, this statement has not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Heidi Lescanec, naturopathic physician with 23 years of experience. And you are blending, I'm just reading your bio for fun, blending the latest scientific research with natural, clinically proven forms of medicine. You're someone, when you reach out, that I say, I would like to talk to this person because I'm all about this. Naturopathic doctors get a bad rap in the mainstream. I sometimes think it's because they're jealous. Do you still get a bad rep? I feel like, is someone making fun of a naturopathic doctor in 2025? But yes, it still happens.
Oh, absolutely. But there are definitely many medical doctors that I work with, that I collaborate with in Vancouver and elsewhere, who are very educated. They tend to be the ones who've gone back to studying functional medicine themselves. And then all of a sudden they encounter the fact that, like in BC, naturopathic medicine has been regulated as a profession, a regulated profession since 1936. So we're not new age. We're not about chakras. So there's a solid foundation there. So there are definitely some MDs, medical doctors, who have that understanding, but plenty who don't. Education, yeah.
Okay, so you have been focusing on hormone health, fatigue, thyroid conditions, insomnia, menstrual irregularities, menopause, insomnia, mood issues, fertility, digestive, the whole range. And you've developed this concept of the pink zones. So this is fascinating to me. Tell me what this is about.
Oh, yes. The pink zones is a term that I coined, and it's similar to the concept of the blue zones, but it goes beyond longevity. So the pink zones are basically the places and the conditions that allow women to thrive in midlife and beyond. And so my project is, I'm collecting oral history, a lot of storytelling that I've had with my patients, but I'm doing interviews as well and research into finding what are those kind of core conditions that allow women to live into 70, 80, 90 happily and healthfully. And some really interesting information is emerging, because it's a lot more than how many years to add on to your life. It's more like, how can we make those years rich? And as we know, women live longer than men, and women also experience dementia at a far higher percentage than men do. So it's something to really pay attention to.
Okay, so what are you finding? What are the patterns that are emerging when you're doing this work?
Yeah, so in my interviews, what I've been finding is a lot of the women who are thriving and really flourishing in the latest chapter of their life have really reframed the narrative of aging. They don't attribute every single experience that they have that's negative as a result of, I'm old. So even though they live in the same soup as we all do, that's very like our anti-aging culture, if they have knee pain, they're not like, oh, it's because I'm old and I just give up and I just lay on the couch. They're like, oh, I guess I haven't been walking lately, or something I've been doing. I used to see a physio and it's time for me to get back to that. Like I've gone off the rails with my stretches or my exercises or whatever that I needed to maintain myself. Because say I was a runner and I experienced knee pain when I was in my 30s, but it required some tending. And so they have that perspective of not everything is just because I'm old. It's also, oh, I used to have this even when I was in my younger years. And what did I do? I worked like I solved it. And definitely the body is a big area of focus for sure, because there is wear and tear. There are absolute realities that things don't work the same as they always did. But it's a bit of a different perspective, is what I would say, the mindset.
I really like that because I was just thinking the other day, I just had an array of problems in my 30s. Like I got this weird blocked tear duct that dogged me for 2 years. I had plantar fasciitis brutally, like in my 30s and 40s, like injuries, bad, terrible cramps. Like you forget about that stuff, right? Like you forget that you ever had a problem when you were younger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gut stuff, not even knowing that you had gut health problems is another one. What are some other things like, for example, how they approach menopause, how they approach that shift?
Yeah, it's quite different for that generation that I'm interviewing. There's a lot of discussion now about breaking the silence. And so I think that they say that wasn't necessarily something that was discussed. I think there was a little bit more. This is your own personal journey to go through. And many have told me how challenging it was when they were in the workplace. They were in like a board meeting and they were sitting around a table and having a hot flash, and how devastating it was. So they experienced a lot of stigma to menopause if they were having those symptoms that were apparent in the world. So I definitely heard about a lot about that. And a big focus of my work these days is workplace wellness and education, because women are at the height of their kind of ability to contribute when they're going through perimenopause and menopause. And so if they're holding themselves back, say in a board meeting, or not going for the job that, or the elevated position because they're in fear that the brain fog means they're having dementia. Like women did tell me that there were some of those ways that they did hold themselves back. So I think the discussions that are coming out about it are super important. And definitely they mourn that wasn't something that they had access to. But one thing I would say is their world was a little bit different than our world. So I think as every decade goes on, and they notice this, that there's just so much more pressure for women to be all things at all times. And so I don't think the multitasking and the hustle culture was quite the same. So they experienced a bit of a detrimental kind of cultural kind of positioning of menopause. Like it wasn't having the moment that it is now. Mm-hmm. At the same time, they had a release of some of the pressures that I think they see women experiencing these days. Yeah.
How about their purpose, sense of purpose?
Oh, yeah, that's huge. Feeling useful and engaged is definitely one of the common denominators in all the people that I'm interviewing and that I have heard really speak about this time of their life as being rich and meaningful. And for some, it's through continued work. There are some women who are just like, I don't plan to retire. There are others who really feel like they're mentors. They have a lot of different age groups in their world, whether it's grandchildren or neighbors or friends of family. Some of them are activists. They are just really engaged in their community and have so much wisdom to offer, so much life experience. And actually, I found this too, and I have a sense you have as well, since I've moved through menopause, is just I feel a sense of urgency to play a role. Like not my focus is more expansive. And so many of them report that they just feel a call to participate and to make a difference. Yeah.
It's really profound. Yeah. It's a feeling that I haven't had since I was in my 30s, but it's different than that time. It's just a focus. I was much more scattered, but I was obsessed with making it. This is a different thing. I've got things that need to come out. That's how it feels.
And I think you're right. It's like the resources available to us. If we're not diverted towards, say, child rearing, if your kids are older, if you maybe are retired, so you're not busting it in the corporate world or whatnot, you have more energy to spend in those places that need care and tending beyond your nuclear family, beyond your job. So you're available. And that's like such a rich time. Like I know my background's in cultural anthropology, and I know you've discussed this in other podcasts, the grandmother hypothesis and how this had led to evolution. And there's lots of different ideas about that. But I really think this demographic is just an incredible resource. And one of the things so many women say, and you've heard this lots too, is you have less F's to give. And so I don't think it's just that you care less about things. You're just more careful about where you spend your F's, and you're more clear on what matters, and you're like willing to like back it up. So I think that's a really powerful experience that women report to me happens in that kind of menopause, postmenopause time.
Someone explained it to me as I actually have a lot of F's. I just feel more strongly about specific things. So I give more to that. Everything else, I don't care. I thought that was a neat way of looking at it too. Okay. So you have seen women come to you in all states of disarray. And you mentioned earlier, this hustle culture. We're really in a time where you just have to say, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. I'm working a contract, and I had been a freelancer for 7 or 8 years before. And I am blown away at the amount of time and energy that's devoted to people demonstrating how busy they are. I just feel like it's crazy. I haven't had to do that. I was a freelancer. I had to get my work done. Women coming into perimenopause, just having been stretched and then hitting like the sandwich of everything, parents aging and experiencing health problems and still having kids, like how much of this busyness required is a problem, do you think?
Oh, it's massive. I experienced it too, so I'm not immune. And
Me too.
yeah. So when I speak about it, I'm not saying on high, and you should do that. But absolutely, perimenopause is an inflection point. And anytime like it's a massive transition, rewiring in those phases to adapt, we really need to recalibrate. And that process requires a certain degree of overall health and resilience going into it. So just if you were entering into like a storm season, like Dr. Jerry Lynn Pryor's book is so aptly named, you need to come in with a fortified vessel. And so if you haven't stocked your pantry and reinforced the walls and the whatever, it's going to be a lot harder. And so this is the challenge. And this is what it actually is the difference between my pink zoned women and many of the women that I work with and my own experience in perimenopause is coming into it depleted and in burnout. Your experience is going to be so different of that storm season if you're depleted and you're burnt out. And I think it requires a different degree of support and foundational scaffolding than we've ever considered before. And so that's what I think why I'm so inspired to discover what are those elements in the pink zones, because I think those are the things that if we hear, that's what helps us to have an awesome midlife plus, then maybe the younger women in our lives, our daughters and the young women who are behind us could benefit from hearing this and seeing that, these are the foundational pieces to put in place. Just as much as everyone's very conscious about what do I need to have good skin as I age, like women in their 20s are very focused on this right now. Their skincare routines, their products, even as Botox in their 20s, thinking ahead, I don't want wrinkles. I think we need to shift the narrative to what do I need to do to provide the scaffolding for myself as I move into the next chapters of life, not just my skin, but the rest of me.
Yeah, definitely. I wish I knew about the scaffolding of my face like that. If I could do some that's the only thing I would say. Or exercise your face too. I think that would be that's the flex in your 20s. I don't know about the skincare. I think you should be doing HIIT on your face. That's all. Not should. I don't want to tell anyone what to do. If I could do it all again, that's where I would be spending a little more time there and a little bit less time on cardio. I know I interviewed a naturopath from Australia recently, and she talked a lot about adrenals. She was convinced it's mostly about adrenals. And then I've had some blowback on Instagram this week from people who are like easy for her to say and yada, yada. I don't know what your approach is to perimenopause and menopause. I suspect you're not in the estrogen deficiency belief system, but I'd like to know what your approach is and how you feel the adrenal glands fit in there.
Oh, yeah. When I was at school in the 90s, adrenals were definitely the area of focus. And I think what's difficult is we use different terms to mean a lot of different things. Something that is talked about so much these days, and I absolutely discuss so much in my practice is the nervous system and how fundamental it is to have a nervous system that's regulated, and how critical that is to move through transition times with a nervous system that's supported and has outlets. Like, we have the ability to experience stress and discharge it. An analogy that I often use in my practice with women coming in who are overwhelmed, experiencing all of the symptoms. Insomnia is especially a significant symptom that shows us our nervous system is dysregulated, but that's for everyone, I would say, right now, not just perimenopausal women, but at the time of perimenopause, there are so many shifts in our hormones that can exacerbate those same conditions that allow other people to have insomnia. With that drop in progesterone being in the very early stage of perimenopause, that is so helpful for GABA. So the calming, putting the brakes on runaway stress neurotransmitter. If we have a drop in progesterone, we're going to have more anxiety. We're going to have more disrupted sleep. And so it's looking at the whole picture. So it is adrenal glands, because obviously cortisol, adrenaline comes from the adrenals. If we're in fight or flight through our days, okay, that's going to put us into sympathetic dominance. So we're going to be triggered more easily. That rage that a lot of women report feeling more of. If it hasn't had an outlet, if you don't have other ways of expressing it or sweating it out or moving it out of the body, it's going to cause some congestion and stagnation. You're going to feel depleted, overwhelmed. It's going to have we need discharge and outlets and movement and release. So I think it's looking at the whole picture. It's adrenals, it's nervous system, it's sex hormones. It's like they're all connected.
There's no one simple way. Okay. Another thing that I want to talk about with you, because, I sweat and worked it out all through my 30s and 20s, but I hit my 40s and it took me a long time to realize, and you say it like this: unprocessed equals unwell. Why midlife brings it all up. What are you talking about when you say that? Why was I was just thinking driving home today that I used to work out and it was like a dark cloud. I was chasing, like I worked out to just get it away from me and get some peace, but it wasn't ever a lasting peace. It was just like working out as fast as I could. So what's going on there?
With the unprocessed unwell?
Yeah. What was going on where I was just like, and then it's like at 30s working and then 40s just working out like crazy, just trying to outrun this sort of like unprocessed emotion that was trying to come out.
Yeah. Well, I think we all bury experiences, or whether it's traumas or just challenging relationship experience, whatever it is that's difficult, unsavory, we can suppress them or bury them until a time where we're safe enough to process and to work on things. It's just the natural way that humans are. And so I think that if we have accumulated so many of them through our life, then when we go through periods of overwhelm or transition, it's like the ground starts quaking under our feet, and what has been long buried or suppressed starts to rise to the surface in order to be dealt with. And so if anything, if we self-medicate to deal with that, or say over-exercising. I definitely have seen a lot of women with adrenal burnout have had that experience of over-exercising as a way to self-medicate. So not necessarily alcohol or drugs, which of course we say are no-nos, but like something as beneficial as exercise. You can overdo a lot of things in order to put the lid on what is unsavory or difficult. And so I think, perimenopause is often a rupture time. And just like you say, whether it's with having teenagers at that time, whether it's having elder parents that you have to tend to, or it's a job that is incredibly demanding, or relationship adjustments, because when we change, our relationships change with our partners. So all of those things, I think, provide like an incredible disruptive foundational experience to allow a lot of that to surface and rise. And so we need those supports to tend to them. And I think those are the things that like a lot of Pink Zones women talk about, is like having incredible companions, having girlfriends, having set that up. So not just relying on your nuclear family, because they're not going to be going through what you're going through. So having people by your side, maybe a little bit ahead of you, mentors, is incredibly helpful. That's what I find in my Pink Zone women. They're mentors to me. They're showing me, they're lighting me the way ahead.
That's awesome. So when you're making your way around the menopause conversation, you have events, you talk about this stuff. What are some of the things you see that sort of make you worried for women?
Mm, I think it's that our culture does focus on the outside so much, and our bodies definitely change in perimenopause. There are some things that show up that are unpalatable to us if we have, through most of our reproductive years, felt like our value is in our face, in our body, and have maybe neglected the personal work, like the kind of foundational pieces for our nervous system or healing unmet needs, understanding boundaries, preferences, limits. If we have neglected those things, I think that's what shows itself to be really tough, like on the emotional front, with a lot of irritability, with rage. Women telling me that they're yelling at someone who's parked in front of their lawn when they're ready to do some landscaping, and they're just erupting, and and then they feel terrible about themselves. There's so much shame over I'm being inappropriate. And I think it's just such a hard time to feel like you don't have those ways to deal with what's really under the hood. So that's the thing that I find concerning, is that we've put so much energy, not that we need to neglect it. I'm a person who likes to feel good in my body and be out in the world as well. So it's important, but I feel like if we only have so much energy every single day, and if our focus is on the outside and we neglect those internal dimensions, then, it can really rise up and be incredibly challenging. The mental health piece, that's the piece that I see.
How do you deal with your patients though? Because if you don't know about this stuff, like I've had some intensely dark experiences in the last 2 years of processing this stuff. And I'm not married. I'm not with anyone in it. There's been it got really dark at some points. And I was also healing from gut and thyroid and those sorts of things. But if someone doesn't know, I'm nervous saying this because I'm not there. We're not there to hold them. So what do you do?
Oh, I always refer to a counselor.
Okay.
I am big on, I feel like I bring it up as one of the foundational pieces, just as much as solid nutrition and including more protein and lifting weights for bone health. It is one of the legs of the table. So women are often coming to me initially for bioidentical hormones. And that's something I've been using for a long time and have a lot of expertise in. And I use, and I recommend, and I prescribe. So that is not a challenge. They will walk out often with the prescription they're looking for, of course, if they meet if it's safe and it's indicated for what's going on. But I always say it's only that wonderful, like little napkin wedge to put under your table that's a bit rickety if all the other legs of your table are well supported. So I just imagine that like mental health and support, psychological support and support for trauma and working on boundaries, it's one of those legs of that table. And so HRT or HT isn't a miracle in and of itself. It can really be one of the helpful supports, but it's not everything. And so I couch it as one of those things. And the beautiful side of it is we have power with that. Like we have agency to make shifts in our mental emotional landscape. And I think our bodies, when they show us signs and symptoms, often it is a bit of an alarm, that it's sounding the alarm before we even realize there's something to tend to under the surface. And many women report once they've worked on boundaries or they've done some healing of things that have come up, that it lightens the load, like that it really decreases some of those physical symptoms. So yeah, I think it's a many legged stool. It's not just one to look at. Yeah.
What do you want people to know about bioidentical hormone therapy in 2025?
Oh boy, there's way too much to say about that than could fit in a soundbite. But I think so many of the concerns that have been raised by people on all sides of the spectrum, the conventional medical world that has said hormone therapy is dangerous, to all the gurus on Instagram that say it's the cure, that it's the one ring that will rule them all. There's something in the middle there. And it's just the naturopathic approach. So what I love about my training and my education as a naturopathic doctor is that it's truly holistic from the very beginning, seeing it as one of the tools, but not as anything as being the panacea that solves everything. I use it a great deal. And if that analogy, if we can think of it as like the napkin wedge that could fit under that table that's rickety, awesome. But again, you have to work on all the other areas. It's not going to be a game changer if you aren't sleeping at night, if you aren't moving your body and you're having joint pain and you have risks for osteoporosis. It's not going to be everything. It isn't everything.
Yeah. Is there anything about hormone therapy that you are excited about? Any other new kinds or research you're looking for, or?
I'm excited about people like you and others having the discussion about progesterone and how important it is that it isn't just estrogen deficiency perimenopause and menopause, because in all the years I've practiced, progesterone is the very first hormone that we use to support women in that chapter. And I just feel like the focus on estrogen is really neglecting that we have these two fundamental, we have many more hormones, but they're the two fundamental hormones that regulate our menstrual cycle and our health beyond just our uterus. Like every cell in our body responds to these hormones. And so I don't know how it is that estrogen got all of the focus and consideration, but I'm really delighted to hear that women are getting more information about progesterone being so supportive, especially in this milieu that I find, which is that we are nervous system dysregulated, and progesterone is so grounding and supportive of deep quality, nourishing sleep. And that is often the first symptom that women experience in perimenopause is disrupted sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm delighted to hear that having a more prominent role in the conversation about hormone therapy.
Early on, when I started interviewing people, I was just astounded that because I started interviewing doctors and they were just like this about progesterone. And then I started thinking, why would you, if someone had a hysterectomy, like why would you only give them estrogen? They walked in there and they're walking out with only one. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like certainly if you have an early hysterectomy, you go through menopause early, you should have estrogen, but why not other? It just doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. And one of our common Pink Zones mentors, Dr. Jerry Lynn Pryor at UBC, she was such a pioneer in research about progesterone. And I remember I went to medical school in Portland in the 90s. And I remember my professors using her research to talk to us about progesterone. And this is to me, like one of the things that speaks the most to why naturopathic doctors should not be neglected as playing a primary role in supporting women in perimenopause, because I was learning about this in the 90s. And it wasn't who, it wasn't chakras. It was Dr. Jerry Lynn Pryor at UBC who started SEMCOR, which has just celebrated its 25-year anniversary?
I don't know exactly, but around there, yeah.
Yeah, phenomenal. So she's an endocrinologist who has done pioneering research in ovulation research and like going beyond just what do we need to reproduce, but also how do women maintain health beyond just the simple role of producing children. Like we matter after that. And so she has really, I think, done an incredible job of bringing that to our attention. And she's made many of those arguments that we're discussing about like everyone is focused on estrogen, but why not progesterone? And yes, it needs to be included. Even if a woman has had her uterus removed, it also is important for the brain to have progesterone. So even if it's not the uterus and protecting the endometrial lining, so not building too much lining with estrogen being unopposed, beyond that, progesterone has a role to play. Yeah.
Yeah, that gets into a whole bunch of thorny areas. I think there's a lot of thorniness happening there. So we'll see what happens in 20 years. I'll be watching anyway. I'll be watching for that and a few other things. Okay. You also mentioned the nocebo effect. And I think this is how cultural expectations can shape our experience of menopause. For certainly, I just thought I was going to go through menopause when I was 70 or something. I don't even know. And I'm a journalist and I've written about it, but certainly I didn't want to go through it because I thought it was gross.
Yes. Yes. I think that's what a lot of women hear and are encountering. And we talked about this M Factor film that I had a screening of, and there were many young women in the audience, and some of them came and saw me after for visits, and I was like, I was wowed to see you there. Like, why did you come? And they said, because my mom went through a really hellish time, or I saw my aunt and I just want to get ahead of it. And I'm like,
Love
what?
it.
So they're like those young women that I'm
I
saying are
love it.
not just focused on skin health, like they are too, but
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, I don't want to lose my mind, and I want to figure out how to get ahead of this. So yeah, I think when we start conversation, just back to the nocebo effect, when we start conversations about menopause with a list of the 35 symptoms, what is that they've talked about, that are all attributed to menopause, it sounds like fire and brimstone. And it's a real setup for this nocebo effect. And we've all heard of the placebo effect, the idea that positive expectations can improve outcomes. And so the shadow side of the placebo effect is the nocebo effect. And so the nocebo effect happens when our negative expectations cause symptoms to worsen or can actually trigger new ones altogether. And so I do wonder if the nocebo effect is shaping how we view menopause and just even aging in general in our culture. And so if we're bombarded with messages that menopause is all misery and that aging is something to fight at all costs, both especially financially, I think, what if it's not just that these beliefs are untrue, which I'm uncovering with my Pink Zones project, but that these beliefs are actually making our experiences worse? That would be tragic, right?
Yeah.
We don't want to be cultivating a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I want to validate when a woman says, yes, I'm experiencing all these things and it's hell. Yes, mine was hell. So I'm not saying like I just sailed through menopause, perimenopause. No, it was really difficult. But I don't want to amplify the discomfort, the anxiety, and the fear that many of us feel about this transition. So that's an important one. I'd like to help shift the narrative, moving beyond the idea that this stage of life is something to hide. Okay, we've done that, I think. The silence has been broken, as many people say. Let's break the silence. But I think let's next steps expand our perspective that it's more than just something to survive, that there is meaning in this chapter and that we have contributions to make.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the big problems with this nocebo effect is that it will lead to the first symptom of perimenopause, which I think is the worst symptom of perimenopause, which is denial, which is this is not happening. If I just get this, if I just get back to where I was. And once you realize, okay, this is what's happening, like everything changed for me when I was like, okay, this is what's happening. Clearly, I had to miss a period for me to actually accept that because I was in denial, because I didn't want it to be happening, because it was bad. That's no place to be when you're denying reality. That's not a great place to be.
Oh my God, you're so, because this is an area I've been focused on for 20 years because my mentors at naturopathic medical school were going through menopause. So I had these Pink Zones women, I would say, ahead of me who I was like, I want to be you. They were incredible. They were legendary. They wrote books. They were like dynamic in their communities. They were gorgeous. They were like, I wanted to be them. I hoped I would one day be them. So I had a different perspective of what it was. And so then I put up my shingle as a naturopathic doctor. I see women who I clearly know are going through perimenopause. I just go in there like a bull in a china shop. I'm like, you're going through perimenopause.
And they're like,
oh my God. I can't tell you. It was as if I was telling them
be very gentle with them.
The worst thing ever, because there wasn't this idea that it was anything that led to a good chapter of life. So yes, I'm with you. We don't want to be in that denial because then we can't take care. We can't tend to those foundational pieces. Yeah, you're so right.
There's a lot of money being made by this, though. I have some friends who are 10 years younger. I saw them last fall, and all of them having anxiety. All of them can't sleep when they drink red wine. I swear that's a perimenopause symptom.
Yes, it is.
They were all having, and then they were all taking GABA, and I was like, I'm the menopause lady, so I try not to say it too much. And they were like, no, I had my hormones tested. They're perfect. I heard that lots to anxiety. And okay, like you'll get there. You're going to get there with it. You're 44. So
yeah,
chances are, but you can't push it. It's certainly no. And I think I was like 47 when I realized, and I think that took the time it took.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of,
yeah. I think that something that's shifted in me in this chapter is I used to get really upset about that and about women being in denial, and including my patients who didn't want to hear about it. And I was like, I have so much information we could discuss, and there's herbs and there's nutrition and there's things that we can do to prepare you and get you on solid ground. And so then what I've started to kind of shift in my own kind of perspective of things is less what I'm against and more what I'm for. And so I think that's why my mission with the Pink Zones is like really having that perception of menopausal women, which we're always menopausal, as Dr. Pryor says. She doesn't really like this term postmenopause because she said you're only postmenopausal when you're dead. You will never be postmenopausal. You will always be menopausal. So this perspective of menopausal women, I want to shift what we see as that, enhance it and expand it to include the women that actually are like contributing and engaged and powerful and thriving. And so I think if we can see that more in that view ahead of us, then there's going to be less to want to deny about our experience because we're in really good company. So that's what I love about the conversations you have, is that you get many people who are like, I feel better. I feel more myself than I ever have.
Yeah, I'm not very interested in the other conversations. I'm not interested in blaming everything on this one thing. I'll blame some things on it for sure. I had a heck of a time. It was very great. I spend all my time doing this because of that. But there is quite a tendency to blame absolutely everything on it, and it's like I just said to someone, it's not a tunnel you enter and never leave. It's not like that. It's a portal. It's every transition. Someone else, I saw this recently. Every transition you've ever had is incredibly difficult. Just even going from university to working and like waitressing to like sitting at a desk. That was terribly hard. It's not the same as perimenopause. But you go from getting a grade for a paper to like having a boss, you don't know what kind of mood they're in. That's a very hard transition. They all are. And this is one of them. But I like the way you're looking at it. I'm really excited to see what you do with the Pink Zones too. I'm glad we talked about it.
Oh, me too. Thank you so much for bringing a lot of information out, and I think helping to share the message that, it's not something to fear. Just like puberty, it's a period of time, but it's temporary. You don't go through puberty forever. You're not like in the throes of acne and forever and ever. There are shifts and there are adjustments, and we can get through it with the right foundational scaffolding.
Yeah, we're here on the other side going, come on, it's okay. It's okay. Oh, thank you. You're just one of those people that I'm so happy to connect with. When I launched this in 2020, I honestly didn't think about all the people I'd get to talk to. It's one of the greatest things.
Oh, you're really expanding horizons. It's an amazing project you're on. So I'm grateful to be part of it.
Cool. Thank you so much, Heidi.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Information received through the podcast should not be used in place of a consultation or advice from a healthcare provider. If you suspect you have a medical problem, i.e. menopause or anything else, or any healthcare questions, please promptly see your healthcare provider. This podcast, including Ann Marie McQueen and any producers or editors, disclaim any responsibility from any possible adverse effects from the use of any information contained herein. Opinions of guests on this podcast are their own, and the podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about a guest's qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. This podcast is owned by Hotflash Inc. Media.